Hey everyone, how's it going? It is I, the real Randy Chavez, coming at you today with a podcast with Tom Anderson of Devio and LitCraft, talking about Devve, blockchain gaming, talking about new Feesh token, talking about how his blockchain is able to get 8 million transactions per second, which is heckin' wild. So, Tom Anderson, I feel like you every now and then might
Oh,
get mistaken for the guy that created MySpace. Do you still get that?
yeah, I actually got that just a few days ago. I was like different Tom Anderson. So thanks for having me, Randy. It's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
of
been
course.
great getting to know you too, and it was cool seeing you playing the game and joining in with the community and getting some high scores. And so yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah. We'll totally get into that and how I just sometimes disassociate and I do nothing but play games for like 6 hours at a time. Um, I was that happened when I was younger. When you were younger, you said you had a cabin over in New Mexico that you still have up in the mountains. Tell us about that. When you went there, did you have like a Game Boy? When you went there, was it just about exploring? Was there any local lore that we should know about?
Yeah, sorry, the internet seems to be cutting out just a little bit, but um, yeah. So when I was a kid, I actually grew up in Los Alamos, New Mexico. So if you've
Mm.
seen the Oppenheimer movie, it's about Los Alamos. I was actually third generation. My grandfather there was there when Oppenheimer was there.
Cool.
Um, yeah, so it was wild. So grew up near the Jemez Mountains and spent my summers going up there. So beautiful, mountainous area, great for hiking, fishing, that kind of thing. And so as adults, we just bought some property in a cabin. And so it was really enjoyable going up there, and it's my old stomping ground. So yeah.
Awesome. When we used to do that, so I've heard people, whether they're truck drivers or people that just, I feel like it's more in the Appalachian Mountains though, that every now and then they hear things and they don't know what it is. Like it doesn't sound like any animal. It almost sounds human, but it's not human. Do you have any of those creepy experiences?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. So when I was a kid, though, I used to hang around in the canyons of Los Alamos, and me and a friend, my friend Chris, were convinced that Bigfoot was down there, and we used to go hunting for him and everything. So
That's so cool. Oh, you should make a game like that, like finding Bigfoot. I mean, like nobody owns Bigfoot, right? There's nobody that
yeah,
has
right.
that.
That one's
Yeah,
free to use. So yeah.
that'd be so much fun. I would totally play that. So when you used to go and do that, and I imagine you still do that now, do you use it to get away, or do you bring your gaming laptop? Do you bring your Nintendo DS? Do you bring everything you game there?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So we've got Starlink, which
Awesome.
is pretty. Yeah, it's amazing. It's you can. Yeah, I've even played Valorant, and so a little bit of a lag. It's like at home, I got like a 60 ping. Up there, it's 90 to 100 ping, but still playable.
Sweet.
So have the internet, have the interactions. I'll go up there and I'll work sometimes. One thing that's neat is I can just walk down to the river and then pull up one of those plastic chairs, and nothing like working in the morning, with the water running by you and stuff. So yeah, it's real relaxing place.
Out of nature. I love that. Do you ever have like a little help? Do you ever have like a glass of whiskey with you? Do you ever have a little something extra to make the neurons fire a little bit, or is it just coffee?
No, I'm not a big drinker myself. But yeah, I do enjoy kind of the peacefulness of being up there. So it's a good place to, get good work done. So that kind of thing.
So after having a very colorful history, being managing partner at Evolution, then being manager partner at Blackfish, CEO at Leverage Rock, you have for almost the past decade been CEO of LitCraft, and then that leads you to being CEO of Devio. But tell us about LitCraft, how you founded it, what your mindset was when you did found it, and just how that's changed over time.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting you mentioned a couple of those older companies. Um, so my two big companies were Devio,
Mhm.
or I'm sorry, Novant. Novant was a robotics company. So we created the world's first consumer 3D touch device. And so I've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years now. And in between Novant and Devio, those were my two big companies. I had a small app business that was the Blackfish one, so it was a children's book creator. So I was looking at making more of kind of a lifestyle business, but got into my second big business, the kind of business that you feel like can become, multi-billion-dollar business, and that was Devio. And so Devio, is a blockchain company. Started it 8 years ago. Saw enormous opportunity in the blockchain space. To me, blockchain is one of the few technologies that really is going to change the world, on par with the internet. Where the internet was a disruptive platform that lets people transfer data, blockchain is a disruptive platform that lets people transfer value. And if you look at it at that most basic level, that's where we saw world changing implications, and why I got so much into blockchain. So in parallel with starting Devio, and that's why I kind of went back and gave a little bit of that history. I've also had kind of a passion project that has kind of melded in, and it's LitCraft. And so me and a friend, John Miller, wrote a book together. And so the book is called Grant Vegan, and so it's a book that's similar in some ways to Harry Potter, similar in some ways to really any kind of fantasy series where you have like a young adult who starts to realize he has powers. So that's just kind of a fun genre, that kind of thing. But a big part of what I worked on, in addition to writing the book with John, is creating the whole um, you know ecosystem and the whole just canon, for LitCraft. And so LitCraft, in a lot of ways, is embodies not just kind of the past 10 years of work, but really a lot of my entire life's work. And so it has a magic system that's built on really decades of thinking. And I when I was younger, I was really into philosophy and metaphysics and things like that. So took a lot of those kind of early thoughts into an evolution and evolutionary algorithms and computing, things like that. So a lot of that's kind of made its way into the base LitCraft lore, and then took that lore, which is more than 10 years old, and turned it into a video game then, and kind of taking my video game background. A lot of my career was in the video game industry. Created a video game ecosystem, financial ecosystem, built on that lore and melded the two together. So those two kind of passion projects, well, one passion project and then kind of my business career, have kind of melded together into a digital financial ecosystem. So a blockchain based ecosystem tied in with kind of this LitCraft lore. So it's fun, mixing the two.
I love that. For anyone that's wondering what he's talking about, you can go into the Google Play Store and type in LitCraft. You can put in nice variants. You don't have to. It'll show up. Um, I've gone on and played several dozen hours of that so far, and I just I just downloaded it like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago.
You're kind of at the early stage of the game. There's a ton of content. So I've been playing more on my phone now. So it's on Android and iOS. So here's an iPhone, and you can go in, and a lot of the games are pretty fun to play. So there's kind of a Minecrafty digging kind of area, that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, it's been a fun game to build, but it's also like what we're doing with the DFE is much more than just a game. It's really more of a financial ecosystem. So the idea is that you could have any type of asset, and starting with game assets and expanding to multiple game assets. But then ultimately, even having things like ESG assets like carbon credits or plastics offsets. We actually paid for some plastic removal out of the ocean and got some cool videos of it. So we're going to turn those into
That's awesome.
tokens that we bring into it. Yeah, it was really neat, with a really neat group called Ocean Integrity. And then we also have um, ultimately, I think even human endeavor itself, have people's activities, tracked in a gig economy and things like that. So the overall digital financial ecosystem is a big vision.
The leaderboard is what I really like because I don't know why. I think it's because I don't know if you ever read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, and he goes on
Heard of
and
it?
says
Yeah.
he has like these bunnies that his bunny just had. He's like, all right, everyone, go out and get some hay, and whoever brings back the most hay, I'll name a bunny after you. And that just got them to go crazy. So I really like it where you have a leaderboard, and my name's Choppy Cat 5, I think, is on there. Um, as two of those that really, I would really like it if you had another leaderboard for like how much you spent, how much person has spent in game. I think that would be really fun too.
That's
And you'll
coming.
get
We
people
have a
they'll be
whole
like,
big expansion of leaderboards coming up.
let's go.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
Uh,
leaderboards hit at just a basic human um, emotion, and so you even think back like when I was a kid in Cub Scouts, you get the badges and who's got the most badges. Like there's just a core human aspect to leaderboards. I love leaderboards too.
yeah. They had that in the military too, where like if you do like a special duty assignment or you do like joint operations with another branch or another section, you'll get like a medal or you get like a ribbon. And there's some people that's what they try to volunteer for everything to get like the giant ribbon stack. And people are annoying. They just take all the good jobs. Because the
Yeah.
more you do it, the more they like you, and the UDM unit deployment managers will be like, okay, you've done a lot. We'll give you this awesome assignment. Like, all right,
Yeah.
that's fair.
Yeah,
Um,
I was playing a game that people love or hate, which is the Flappy Lip Pet game, and
so hard.
so
I'm
it's
not good at
very
that at
hard.
all.
Yeah, it's in the category of rage games, right? And so so there's a game where what's the name of that game? It's like where a guy's in like a his bottom half of his body is in a big bucket, and then he like grabs a stick and um,
Yes,
yeah.
I know
So
it.
so it's
Yeah,
so frustrating. Like you'll make your way. It's really hard as well, but you make your way up a ways and then you fall all the way back down to the bottom and like
yeah.
so it's a total rage game. So Flappy Lip Pet is one of those types of games. So I was checking out the leaderboards recently because like I said I did a review of them and we're doing an overhaul of all the different things in them. Actually I think it was you that mentioned on the Telegram that the cube game, didn't we weren't keeping track of the score. So I just sent a note out to our main kind of back end developer to change the score on the cube game, not from what cube you got, but your actual score, which is what it should have been. So that was a
Yeah.
good comment. But anyways, I was playing Floppy Lip Pet game, and I myself started playing. And I was like, I want to get that high score, and there's two people above me. I couldn't quite get there, but I
What
got
was
I
your high
got over.
score so far?
It was I think 31 or something, which is pretty good.
Wait, the
So
cube
so
thing?
no. This is the Flappy Lip Pet game.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah,
Yeah. So 31 is hard.
I got two.
So yeah. So but it's also kind of like a Zen kind of game. That's how these rage games are. Is they're super frustrating, but then what makes them so appealing is for one the challenge, and another kind of getting the leaderboard high score and getting your own high score. But once you start kind of getting good at them, you almost get in like a Zen type of place. And when you really so I played that game is kind of inspired by Flappy Bird, if you
Yeah.
remember when that was a big rage, and it's an example where this type of game has a huge following. So not every game is for everybody, but it just went crazy. It was number one on the App Store for a long time, and I got to a point where I could get, and it's about the same level of difficulty as that. I got to a point where I got in the hundreds, and you kind of get this Zen feeling, and it's that's what makes that type of game fun. The other thing that's kind of neat about an experience overall, the LitCraft and experience game is, there's games for everybody, right? So you what got really high on the ball breaking game.
Yeah. No,
That
no
one
one
that
is
one
touching
is
that score for a
yeah,
long time.
I don't
For
think
people,
so. Yeah, so
for
that
people
that
to
one is
understand,
that's a
the levels,
grinding game. Yeah,
yeah, the levels that it goes, like the second person in second place got level like 339 up to that
yeah.
level, and mine was like 529. So I'm like 190 levels above that. So that's gonna take a long time for someone to go and
Yeah, no, that was great. So that one's kind of a grindy game and says something about your kind of game mentality that you got that high score. And then there's other games that are based more on strategy, has the old classic solitaire and Sudoku. There's a game that's a tower defense game. You were playing that too, the Bully Balls game, which is a lot of fun. I'm going to expand that soon. That was kind of a MVP, type of approach. But
yeah,
there's games in there for
40
everybody,
is the
and so
top level,
that's
right?
yeah, 40 is the top
Oh,
level, but I'm gonna put make it where there's an infinite top level. And I think what I'm imagining I'm gonna do is once you unlock 40, then you'll unlock that level, and then you can play that level from 40, and you'll get your cash that you would get, for getting up to that level. and then it's just how high can you get? I'm going to make it hard. I'm going to make it where
Really?
you're going to have to really hone in on strategy and get good decks. That's a big part of the game too, is getting
Yeah.
a good deck. So I think that's going to be really fun for that game and kind of create a whole new type of interaction. But
Yeah.
there's something for everybody in the experience, which is neat.
Yeah, these games are like, especially with that one, is like a symphony because you can get, more of this in-game currency, you can get more of these monsters, and the better monsters you get, the better scores and strategies that you can do for these games. So I like that high level of thinking. And if people are just like, I don't want to get lost, I just want to zone out, I don't want to have to think. Like you said, there's the break ball, there's the solitaire, the cube game. I like that there's something for everyone. The the solitaire though, I don't know how people get solitaire in like 90 seconds. That is
Oh, it's crazy.
bananas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, some of the high scores in that are pretty crazy. And you maybe worry about somebody cheating, to get that score, but some of the high scores, I know the players, and I've actually even seen kind of them progress and how they got the scores, and they're legit. They're just, crazy players. And there's some of the high scores that are just amazing. Like in the so one of the most complicated games, one of the most sophisticated games and long-term games, you could spend hundreds of hours just on this game legitimately, is the Heptone battle game. And so in the Heptone battles, I've seen people get up in the PvE version of the game, so it's called Infinite now. I've seen people get up to level 60 plus, and 60, and it gets harder every time, and
Yeah.
almost in a cheating kind of way, like just incrementally. You play against an AI, but the AI is not great, but the characters that the AI has get increasingly difficult, and so people have just honed in on that strategy. And I love strategy. I love design. I love game design. And there's a lot of people that have surpassed my abilities in that game, even as the designer in it. So. And we've had a number of contests where we get on, and all of the best players are playing. We had a contest where if anybody could beat me, Mango Steve, and Rompanade, then they get an early badge and award. And there were quite a few people that had played enough to beat the in-house masters. So
I didn't know that's how you pronounce Rapinade. I've been like in my head, I've been calling it Rapinade. Like, okay, Rapinade.
I might have it wrong. I don't know. I should ask him.
I mean,
His
it's
real
probably
his real
right, and
name
I was
is
just joking.
Yaroon. Here's a funny one. There's one fellow in our group called Alien, and for years I've been in my mind calling him Al Yoon. Um, and then one point, somebody on a one of our other team members on a company call said something about alien. I was like, "What do you mean alien?" And they're like, and I was like, "Oh, you mean Ilyun, Ilyun, whatever." And so I asked him, "How do you pronounce your name?" And he said it was a name that was as if like aliens were to try to spell alien and they didn't quite get it. And I was like, "Oh, that's clever." So anyways,
It's
just a quick
awesome.
aside. I also pronounced through all of the Harry Potter books. I pronounced Hermione's name as Hermione, and then
Yeah,
I
same.
saw the first movie, and it was like, wait a minute, what's going on? So that's a funny concept when names are different than what you get used to. So.
Yeah, I don't know why that happened. I've never heard of that name beforehand, and now like I have friends that are teachers, and some of their kids that they teach are named Hermione and all that. They're Cora. I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, there's a so as we were talking about the high scores and like the certain games. Have you ever watched a channel called Summoning Salt?
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah.
He's a YouTuber, and he makes these like epic documentaries of these games that people do speed runs of. That like Mike Tyson Punch Out does it on like Mario Brothers. I think I just mentioned before about Tetris. They the speed runs on it, and it's just absolutely bananas. You would love it. You would love
Yeah,
him, and I
speedruns are
feel like
fun.
yeah, I feel like we should have those like competitions. I mean, we already have the leaderboards,
Well,
but
we
like
totally will. So
yeah,
one of the big things coming up, I mentioned it a little bit to you, is Legion. So Legion is, you might think of it as the world's first real world MMO. And so the idea is like in an MMO, so like World of Warcraft, and I played EverQuest back in the day, even before EverQuest 2. In a MMO, one of my all time favorites was City of Heroes 2. Man, that was a great MMO. So in an MMO, you run up to an NPC, and they give you a task, go collect 50 of these, whatever, and you fight things out in the forest and collect the skins and come back. And then he's like, great, thank you. Now go do this task. And you do 3 or 4 tasks a lot of times, and then he'll forward you to, the next NPC, right? And so what the Legion is it's an ecosystem, or it's a game, a real world game, kind of like that, where you do real world tasks instead of RPG tasks. And they might be, go out and tweet this, or go out and go to this website and find this hidden word on the website, or help us come up with images, for a game, or vote on this type of thing as part of the community. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So one of the things we're planning to do with Lit Legion is a bunch of gaming level tasks too. And speed runs would be great. And I love speed runs too. I love watching people do them and everything. So speed runs will be part of the tasks we'll do in Lit Legion. That'll be one of the things. And then it'll be other things like get this high score. You have 3 days to get it. At least 20 and flappy lip pad. Stuff like that, right?
So there's the difficulty of these tasks. Are they going to be like Cicada 3301 level, or are they going to be like scavenger hunt with your friends at a block party where everyone's drunk and
Some of
they're
them,
able to
some
do
will be fun and easy, just daily check-in types of things. I
it?
think what makes that type of activity fun, and again, this is a lot of just game design and game theory and gamification, right? Is you want to have things that are easy to learn, easy to play, but difficult to master. And you want to always have kind of a dangle out in front. And then some of the best rewards, for those that take that extra step and want to actually master something. So I think the daily tasks and the weekly tasks will have some easy ones, but it'll have some hard ones too. And then another of the kind of big concepts in it is the idea that you'll grow the community too. So one of the more valuable business items in the game is called Opsonaut, and it basically represents marketing points. And the only way to get marketing points in these virtual businesses is to do real world marketing in the Legion. And so Legions is now, yeah, we've been just kind of selling them, but a big part of what's going to be coming up, and this is what I think is really powerful in a play to own or play to earn kind of game. Play to own games, um, in that type of game, you design the game where a lot of the monetization and a lot of the upside goes to the players rather than the publisher. It's a different game philosophy. I think it's going to become one of the biggest genres in games coming up. And so the idea is that in a game like that, where a lot of the upside goes to the player base, we're all building this game together. We all should, market and sell it together as well. So a big part of what's, going to happen is that, the Legion is going to drive and organize people's efforts to try and grow the game virally. And I think that's a pretty exciting part of what's coming up too.
So I can't wait for that. You have a bunch of marketing that you could do, obviously, through that. Will you have an ambassadors program, or is that kind of be like built in?
Yeah, so that'll be part of Lit Legion as well. And then another thing that I'm pretty excited about, this has been one of, I think, the bigger milestones that we've hit, as a company kind of growing this, is the overall kind of advertising spend that we're looking at. So when you start looking at growing and building a game, it's difficult to rise above the noise, to say the least. Whether you're in the Web3 space or traditional games or whatever. And so one of the things that we decided on, um,
Making sure he knows where to play.
yeah,
Yeah, there
cool,
you go.
LitCraft experience, yeah. So one of the things that we decided on over a year and a half ago is that we thought mobile would be the best way to grow. And so mobile, it's hard to build mobile games, adds a lot of complexity and specific things. But one of the most important things, one of the most difficult things for a Web3 game is Apple's terms and conditions, and like the Steam terms and conditions, and even to a reasonable extent, Google Play. And so what we had to do is re-architect the entire system so that it runs on a traditional server, so that you could pass Apple's terms and conditions. But the whole philosophy is that it's a play to own game and a play to earn game. And so you have to stick to that core philosophy. So how do you meld those two? And we came up with really a pretty innovative way to do it. So you can, and actually this fundamental technological implementation and innovation is very powerful. So the idea is that it's a Web3 game that you can take anything that you play and create and own, but it's run on a traditional server. So what you then do is you go into the DevX wallet app, and then you can transfer anything in the game over to the blockchain with just a push of a button, very easy. And then once it's on the blockchain, you can sell it on the Glassblock marketplace, or you'll eventually be able to bridge it over to other blockchains or bridge it into other games, that kind of thing. So you can imagine even like building an engine in LitCraft and actually crafting it, and then take that engine up into the blockchain and then transfer it back down into maybe a AAA racing game, something like that. And so we've been building all of that kind of technology. So the punchline is we got to the point where we got everything on mobile, have started advertising it, and we've gotten our customer acquisition cost. It's down to like 14 cents. I mean, it's crazy. It's like
That's
a
incredible.
30th of what. That's the most recent numbers. It's like a
Oh my
30th of
God.
what you normally get in a game, and it shows how much demand there is in the world for this type of thing. So you combine all of the technological development, all the blockchain development, the world's arguably fastest blockchain, 1/10 millionth the cost of Ethereum, 3
Yes.
billionth the energy usage. So very efficient, 3 billionth the energy usage of Bitcoin, very efficient, very cost effective, very easy to integrate with blockchain. And then a big part of what I'm looking to do is license games. I'll mention that in a minute as well. I think people would like to hear that. But you take all this kind of development and the kind of foundational ecosystem, and then the interaction with the wallet, get down to where you have that kind of customer acquisition cost. I think we could just explode things, from here. So I'm really excited about kind of where we're headed.
Great. So when you mention obviously just an example of a AAA racing game, let's say if you build that amazing engine, how much is that going to cost to mint? Is it going to depend on the size and complexity, or is it just going to be like to mint that? How much would that be?
So you're talking about on kind of like the licensed games that we create.
I guess anything that is being built and then you're minting it on the blockchain, and then
Yeah.
how much does that cost?
So minting costs are trivial. I mean, it's basically free. Like you can go in and like you can craft a lit pet, which is minting, on the blockchain. You could do that. You know, there's no cost. There's no economic cost to do it. There's you got to get all the requirements for minting,
Yeah.
within the game. So let me take you through a little bit. I think the heart of your question. Let me take you through a little bit of the business model that we're developing, and this is I think probably the thing that is most important in growing where we're going to be growing, and it's our licensing model. So let me actually take a step back and give you a little bit of history too, that I think is pretty relevant. So in my first business, again, was a robotics business. We took robots that cost tens of thousands of dollars, got them down to a consumer price point, and with that, got into the video game industry. So it's pretty amazing technology. You could hold on to the handle of a robot, and you can move it right and left and forwards and backwards like a mouse, but you could also move it up and down. So you can move this robot in full 3D. And as you move the handle of the robot in 3D, it would control a 3D cursor on the screen. And so you could reach out and touch something virtual. So one example is we created a dental simulator with the Harvard School of Dental Medicine. And the
So cool.
dean of the Harvard, yeah, it was awesome. The dean of the Harvard School of Dental Medicine gave us an A plus in drilling. He said it felt exactly like real life. So you could drill a virtual tooth and feel yourself drilling through it with this robotic device to a level that a real life surgeon thought it felt like a real life medical procedure. So it was really neat technology. That was my first business. But with getting the robotic hardware down to a consumer price point, wanted to get into the video game industry. And so in the video game industry, if you have a hardware device, you have to have software to drive sales. You have this big chicken and egg problem. How do you get 1 million units out if you don't have big software titles to drive the hardware sales? But how do you get those big software titles if you don't have a bunch of units out, and I ran into that a lot of times. I actually met with Bobby Kotick, for example, the head of Activision at the time. He tried a demo of it. He was like, yeah, so excuse my language, but this his words, oh my fucking god, this is amazing, is what he said. And he said that you're one of the few guys that's come in and done what you said you're going to do. I love it. When you get to a million units, let me know, and then we could do something. And he like stood up and left. Just, I was kind of like,
Good
wow, the
boss.
meeting's over. And so he really made the point that you have to have to work with the big games. You have to have a big installed base. So, like any entrepreneur, I wish I knew then what I know now. And it took me a couple years to develop this model, but without going into too many details, basically what I figured out how to talk to the publishers in a different way, where we could license the games without having that big installed base. And so what I would do is license the games. I would get full source access to the games, do a small modification. In that case, get them working with our hardware device. In this case, get them working with our blockchain technology with what I'm planning now, and ended up licensing over $100 million worth of video game development. And we licensed Tiger Woods Golf, Madden Football, NBA Live, Need for Speed, Mass Effect, Battlefield Series, Half-Life 2, Left 4 Dead, Team Fortress 2, Dirt, Grid. Some of those are some of the biggest game franchises of all time. Like
Yeah.
top 5 all-time game franchises, up there with Tetris and Mario, right, and all the things that he's done, right.
Mario, you say?
Yeah, yeah, right. Um, you'll like this. In that business, I met Shigeru Miyamoto, and
Oh,
I
my
gave him a
dad.
demo, and it was great. He tried it, went through a bunch of the games. He would try some of the 3D touch things. He'd go like, "Oh wow!" And so there was, I think he had a translator, but I think he understood English more than maybe he was letting on. But
Yeah,
that was a great honor, to give him a demo. Okay,
I
so
bet.
anyways, we did these big licenses. Got this out with the hardware device. So fast forward to now, we've come out with our own blockchain game. It was listed on LitCraft Experience, by the way, was listed as the number 2 blockchain game by Cointelegraph, out of thousands of blockchain games. So that was a great honor as well. But I think one of the big things missing in the whole blockchain gaming you know category is quality games. And there's a lot of crypto projects that raised a bunch of money and they're trying to build their own games, but building your own AAA game is really hard. I mean, really, really hard. And having been in kind of the traditional video game industry for years, over a decade, like you would see big movie studios come in, spend a ton of money, take a big a big brand, and then try to and spend millions and millions of dollars and come out with a AAA level game, but it would be a flop. It's really hard, even if you have a big brand, right? Yeah, so it's a very difficult thing to do. So I think a lot of the crypto and blockchain projects are going to find that they're going to find that coming out with big game titles that you develop yourself. Again, it's very tough, and there'll probably be a couple winners, but there's going to be a whole graveyard of failed projects. So
We've already
what
seen
we're
this.
looking to do instead, and that was a whole lot of hopefully not too long-winded background of
Oh, that's great.
the way I started this is, the thing that I think is going to drive us the most is we're going to take established, well-proven titles. We have, for example, a license we've been negotiating with games that have over 400 million downloads, right? And so we're going to take established titles, license them, put put them into a Web3 context, put them into kind of a play to own type of context. And it's really a pretty small amount of development. Like we're only going to touch 1% of the code, for example, with like the inventory system, you put that on the blockchain, make it where you could load the games up into the blockchain, transfer them down into other games, as part of this whole financial ecosystem, but really take high-end games that are proven and established, license them using my old licensing expertise, put them into our blockchain using a very high speed, high throughput, cost effective, easy to integrate with blockchain, and really bring high level content into the gaming ecosystem, the blockchain gaming ecosystem. And I don't know anybody else that's done the type of licensing that I've done in the video game industry, and there's no other blockchain that can manage kind of the scale and throughput and size, cost effectiveness that you need to bring these mainstream kind of games in. And so I feel like we have the two very difficult to implement missing pieces to bring very high quality proven content into the blockchain gaming space. So that's where we have our eyes set. There's no promises. Anytime you're in an early stage company, it's always difficult to put these types of things in place, but I've done it before. We have things lined up now that I think we can get in place. So I'm optimistic, is I guess the way to put it, that we're going to be bringing in high end content into our digital financial ecosystem. And I think that could be the thing that drives us more than anything else.
So obviously the place that you're attacking and the place that you're going and filling that hole with and being the best at is to be licensed games. Out of the people that are building Web3 games right now, who do you think is the closest to get that AAA game out? Do you think it's Illuvium? Do you think it's something on Immutable X? What game, in your opinion, do you think they can do it?
I like Illuvium. I've spoken to the founder of Illuvium, and great fellow, and had a great conversation with him. This is a couple years back. When you look at what they're doing, they've got um, several different categories of games, and they're all the right kinds of categories that are very well suited. And they've got, they raised a bunch of money, and you can tell from gameplay footage and kind of previews that they're creating something powerful. So I think there's a good chance that they could succeed. But the caveat there is still it's very hard to build high end AAA games from scratch. It's just it's notoriously hard in the traditional video game industry, and that's why you have these brands that once you get a hit, you just stick with it. Call of Duty year after year after year, Madden football year after year after year, right?
Yeah,
Once you have something that's kind of successful, there's so much risk in having a new title that most of the biggest publishers and most of the money that goes into games is these brands that are established. That's why that happens, because it's so hard to build a new brand.
yeah. I think Nintendo does that really well. Like let's say
Oh
like
yeah, they're
Pokemon.
one of
Well,
the
there's
best at it.
three different companies of Pokemon. You have Pokemon, you have Game Freak, and then you have Nintendo, and they're all, and that's why I think you can continuously out innovate. Again, I'm just a Nintendo fanboy. So with you guys, as you're disrupting a couple of different things, bringing these types of games over to blockchain, I, I I don't even know if I could ask this question. I'll ask it and answer it however you want. Um, you've worked with some of the largest brands and some of the largest games. Which one would you be most excited if you could get the license to bring to blockchain?
So there's kind of the business side of that, and then there's kind of the personal side of it, and then there's kind of the realistic side of it, right? So on the business side of it, any big game franchises, like a Call of Duty kind of game, would be amazing, to partner. But it's probably going to take some time improving things out. Like in my original licensing model, it took me 2 years really to kind of hone the model, learn how to talk to publishers. I worked my way up from single person studios to small studios to medium size, all the way up to ultimately Electronic Arts, and licensed a bunch of their games, which was the biggest at the time. Yeah, and it'll take time to really prove out this play to own category, to really get those big franchises, because they're so protective over the brand and what it means. And but ultimately that's what I'd like to see happen. I'd like to see us become the dominant blockchain gaming platform, and then with that, ultimately, as it becomes I think play to own is going to become table stakes. I think at the point where you've earned a gun skin, or a high end racing car after playing, for 9 months, you compare that with another FPS or racing game where you don't own the items. Nobody's going to play the old way once it starts to become established, right? So
Agreed.
play to own to me is going to become a de facto category in the entire gaming space, not just blockchain games, but it's going to become, again, table stakes that everyone's going to shift to it. So I'd like to see us become, the established leader in the blockchain gaming space and the play to own space, that when those big titles are ready to move over and that table stakes concept has happened, I'd like to see it be our platform that they move to. On the personal side, that I have some of my own favorite games. So my favorite FPS game, and I've spent a lot of time playing, is Valorant. So I
Cool.
would love to get Valorant, just because it's a game I love myself. But like, yeah, you can't make your business decision around that too much. And then Riot,
Yeah.
is kind of stayed away from the blockchain, space. So that's probably a little ways out. And then on the realistic side of things, I think similarly, I think a lot of the place where we could get our initial earlier growth is on the mobile side of things.
Yeah.
And and I've seen a lot of um, the crypto and blockchain projects focusing on things that are more, AAA, guy, hardcore gamer guy, types of things. But I mean, there's so many people that love mobile games, and it's a lower bar, to get a lot of the games. It's not a 10 million plus budget. It's not like that. And I think our biggest strength and what we're really building again is not as much a gaming company, but a digital financial ecosystem business where we're making all the various games and whatever you like to play. And we've started that with an experience, right? Whatever game, whatever genre you want to play, there's something for most everybody already. You can come in and play it. And so if you start to get many of these mobile games and mobile experiences and the main genres merge, match three, kind of the smaller racing games, the solitaires and sudokus, if you get all of those types of things all integrated with a digital financial ecosystem, like why would you play, the Netflix download of a solitaire game or the Apple arcade version of a solitaire game versus ours, where you can download it and play it. Solitaire is solitaire, but you earn something in ours, right? I think that's going to be a huge competitive advantage. And so I see a lot of growth on kind of the mobile casual side of things, in addition to, some of the efforts we're putting into licensing, the bigger games too, of course. So
Yeah, some of them are just it's more convenient. Some of them are easier. Like I think Mario Run when that came out, you could just play with one hand because he's constantly running and you're just tapping to jump.
yeah, people like tapping the
Marvel,
screen.
yeah, it was great. Marvel Snap or Strike Force. One of the Marvel games is just absolutely blown up, and they're just I have a couple more questions, but we have some questions from the audience here. It says gamers have been screaming for ownership of gaming skins.
Absolutely.
What's
Yeah.
the hurdle for franchises to oblige? Like, is it going to take someone like yourself to hold the hand of these big gaming companies that might not really understand blockchain and walk them through it slowly? Or is it they're going to try to do that themselves and they'll stumble and fall and eventually they'll fall upwards?
I think they're going to be forced to do it at some point. So again, it's going to become table stakes. So Valorant's a good example. Like when you go in and there's a lot of prestige. Like my favorite, weapon is this dragon, and you click the button to reload, and it like looks back at you, grabs the clip, jams it in, and goes, "Arr," and then it's ready to go. It's a cool skin, man. It's awesome to play with. Um, and so, but you what their business model, and it's an effective business model, they're making a lot of money on it, is you just buy the skin from the publisher and they own it. Like if you look at the terms and conditions for
Mm.
99% of games out there right now, they own the assets that you create, and they specifically say you don't own it. So I agree with the statement. Gamers have been screaming for ownership of gaming skins. I totally agree with that. I think the way it's going to progress is that there's going to be companies like us that do some licenses of high end games, not the biggest games, but high end, the high end AAA level games and high end mobile games that have had these hundreds of millions of downloads and things like that, and it'll start to become established, and then they're not the bigger companies aren't going to be able to stay away from it, because again it'll become required, you know like they'll lose audience if they don't have it at some point in the future. And so it'll be a progression, I think, over the next kind of 2 years kind of time frame, that same kind of original time frame I had, where over the next 2 years more and more games are going to have more and more ownership, and you almost reach a point where it tips, and it's like you can't do it anymore, where you don't own your skins anymore, right? So if I play um Overwatch 2 or Valorant, and one of those games you own the skins, and when you're done playing, you can sell it. Like, which are you going to play? Like, especially if you're kind of deciding between them, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I say it's going to become table stakes. That's what I mean by that, is that people will choose the equivalent kinds of games based on which one has ownership of the assets. So
There's So the analogy or the parallel I was attempting to draw, where you're saying, oh, maybe someone like yourself would have to go in and hold the hands of these companies. VV's kind of doing that with Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, and saying like, hey, you guys don't know a ton about blockchain. Here's what NFTs are and digital collectibles and why it's good. And they've been holding their hand through that. Despite that, Disney is going. They have. Do you see that trailer that they did with Epic Games? There wasn't a trailer of actual gameplay. It was just rendering of stuff. But basically, they're coming out with like a Disney verse on
oh right,
Fortnite with
yeah,
Epic
I've seen
Games,
that. Yep.
and I don't. They haven't mentioned any much about it. I don't think they're going to be NFTs, but they might be interoperable with some other different types of metaverses. Um, when you have these type of big companies coming in, Stan asks, Ronin was hacked with Axie Infinity. What's the best security measure for this genre?
Yeah. Okay. So let me mention the Ronin thing in a second. I do want to comment on what you just said about the Disney
Sure.
genre and the metaverse. So Disney's
Mhm.
done this before. They had like these collectibles. I'm forgetting the name of what it was, but my son was into it, which is why I knew about it. But you had these actual physical little collectibles, and you would set them on these little stands that were attached, to a gaming console. And so you had these kind of physical things that were tied into it, and they started to build an ecosystem around it. And so that's kind of a neat concept. So what I was talking about is different, though. I'm not talking about NFTs in general. I'm not talking about artwork. I'm not talking about collectibles, and I'm not talking about things in metaverses. I'm talking about the big genre change. I'm talking about ownership of assets in the big games that we play, not new metaverses that, I think there's going to be some growth in metaverse spaces and collectibles and like that, and a lot of money in the last bull market was made in that. But the thing that in the video game industry that I think is going to become huge is the ownership of the majority of where money is made right now in video games. And video games is a huge industry. So there's not a lot of money made in collectibles and stuff, but there's a ton of money made in skins, right? And those are collectibles, but I'm talking about, I'm still distinguishing, I'm just kind of splitting hairs between like the Disney collectibles, which are built around a character, versus a skin in a game where the main thing you're doing is playing the game, versus something where the main thing is you love a particular brand or character, that kind of thing. So that's what I think is going to be huge. That's going to be a whole new, like I think there was CD-ROM games, with Myst. There was MMOs. EverQuest was the first big one. Apple came out with the iPhone, and so the first time you had free to play games, that kind of turned into advertising, and then a lot of what's been recently is free to play games that where you buy skins, things like that. So there's these five or six big categories of financial opportunity in the video game industry. And then buying games the whole time is one of the big categories. I think play to own is going to become one of those big categories. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. Okay, so then the kind of audience question with the Ronin was hacked with Axie Infinity. So um, not to be too sarcastic, but don't put all of your assets, that are real assets in a wallet, that's so they really did a poor job. They took something that had significant value and didn't put the right kind of security measures around it. And I'm not going to throw stones, but it's so security around those types of things, um, is um, yeah, I mean, that's a challenging space, right? And so I think uh, one of the things that we've done, and I would go. Well, I'll put it this way: one of the things that we've done that I think is really strong for this type of interaction is with our sharding approach. The thing that differentiates the DevX blockchain, which is the blockchain that we run our games and other applications on, the Dev Exchange that's coming up, it's going to run on the DevX blockchain, that kind of thing. The thing that sets us apart from everything else in the blockchain space is our sharding solution. So we can create any number of shards, or in our case, that means independent blockchains. We can create any number of independent blockchains that are customized each to a specific application. And so what you can do with that is you could customize the shard and that shard's blockchain to regulatory requirements. So we could have 1,000 different shards in 1,000 different legal jurisdictions where each shard is customized for that legal jurisdiction. We also can customize shards and implementations around security. And so let's say, for example, we get to a point, especially with some of the new U.S. legislation that hopefully goes through the Fit 21 bill, that lays out and defines some regulatory rules and requirements. We could have a shard that maintains a cryptocurrency, and that shard could be integrated in with an exchange where the exchange's servers are whitelisted into that shard, and no other exchanges can touch that shard. And then we can use our cross shard mechanism that's the kind of the core of our invention, to move the same asset across different shards. So that really is a good way to build, security around applications. If you've seen Cloudflare, for example, they
Yeah,
block a lot of traffic coming in. We kind of innately have that built in. Every one of our blockchains has a traditional database and traditional security and traditional systems sitting on top of it, and you can control like who can go and interact with it. So if you have a game and the game is interacting with those assets, then those assets, can be set in a secure way with the game where it's not really open to hackers. And so you get kind of the benefits of Byzantine fault tolerance, in a traditional blockchain kind of sense, with kind of traditional security measures that a lot of the traditional business world has had to implement. And there's hacks across all the business world, so there's no absolute solution to this by definition. But I would say our approach is kind of bleeding edge. It's got a lot of the characteristics that are the most secure, and security's been, a foundational design aspect for us from the beginning. So
agreed. There is you mentioned before, I want to get into this before I get into, how long do I have you for? Um,
um, we can go over another 10 minutes. I think we had scheduled, but I'm open to go over if we need. So
okay. I mean, because I do want to talk to you off camera a little bit as well. So we'll go here another 5, then we'll go off camera a bit. I guess we'll go here. The
yeah,
accounts valve.
I'm not in a hurry if we want to keep the show going. This is fun. I like the questions you're asking, so it's good.
All right, cool. I guess this was a question. Saying Valve confirmed how Steam accounts are non-transferable and cannot be passed on even after account holder's death. That is wild. That is, oh my God. So I
Yeah.
know I like EA. You mentioned them before because just nostalgia. EA Sports. It's in the
Right.
game.
It's in the
But
game.
then they had. I assume you're familiar with the most like downvoted comment in Reddit history. Are you? Or
I might be. I'm not. It sound that rings a bell.
it was Star Wars Battlefront. It was a Star Wars game where you play like the entire game, and you could either then choose either Luke or Vader that you could or wanted to
Yeah.
play as.
I
And
played
then
I played Battlefront, so you could play Luke or Vader. That was one of my favorite FPS games. It was great. Yeah.
so when people asked on Reddit like, hey, why can't like you get both? And then they said like, oh, we want each person to have like a sense of accomplishment for feeling this. It'd be like a waste to give like you both. And it was like just the most downvoted comment in Reddit history.
Yeah.
what what can you learn from that? What do you think will prevent you from becoming like one of those companies that just eventually get like money high? Because a vet like this, Devio being able to do 8 million transactions per second, there's going to be a ton of people building on this blockchain. I think Devi's going to go to the moon. Um, Not saying that just because I have some, but I have some because I would have said that prior. What's going to keep you guys from becoming one of those companies that just like kind of loses touch with
Yeah.
people and their wants and needs?
So Valve this question started with Valve. Valve historically has been one of the most closed companies that you can imagine. So in my first business, we actually did a deal with Valve, and I met Gabe Newell. He tried a demo of the 3D touch technology. He loved it as well, and that's really what got us to do a deal with them. Is he tried it and he liked what we were doing, and so we licensed Half-Life 2, Left 4 Dead 2, Team Fortress 2. Some of those games are in the orange box. We got the whole orange box, and we got source code access to their games and integrated in, with those games. So Valve. So at that same time, I was working with Electronic Arts. So I love Valve. I love what they've done. I love Steam. I think the ownership in Steam is great. It's disappointing to not be able to transfer, an account after you die. I think there's people gonna have a little more uproar about that, and even Valve, as well as they've done and as closed as they are, ultimately they're gonna have to answer to customers, and that type of thing is the type of thing that you can lose, and somebody else can come in and take over, right? So they're going to have to listen to the customers. I think they're probably eventually going to have to revisit that, especially as play to own becomes more and more of a thing. But Valve's kind of closedness, and like Gabe Newell could have sold Valve for many billions of dollars. Like there's a million there's a bunch of companies that would love to buy Valve. I mean,
Yeah.
so obviously he's not in it just for the money at this point. Like he's built something that he's proud of, and that they're growing and everything. Um, so Valve has a very difficult culture, I think, is the thing. And they were really hard to work with. They were, once it got past Valve and you were working with, kind of the people, there's just kind of an arrogance, and that they know they're on top, they're the king of their world, very big fish in their pond. And it's not a small pond, it's a reasonable sized pond, but they were just tough to work with. So I think that culture fits with that kind of result. Devio, in contrast, has been built on a culture of, I mean, part of it's my personality. Like I'm a big believer that those that share in the upside, those that create the upside need to share in the upside. I'm a big believer in the culture. Like Devio is just a fun company. I think like all the people, we're friends. We all work together. We know we're going through it. You know, arms locked, wading through the mud at times, but we'll be sipping cocktails on the beach later when after we kind of hit our home runs, hopefully, that kind of thing. So a lot of it is the culture at Devio, but fundamentally Devio is built on this philosophy where it's around um, a lot of the core philosophies of blockchain, decentralization, people own their assets. But the gaming side of things, the digital financial ecosystem, is built around the core philosophy that it's for the players. Like you can't build a company and a project like this and not have that be your philosophy. And it's not something, it's going to be ingrained in this for forever on. Even if at some point somebody takes the company over from me, it's going to be ingrained that nobody's going to ever be able to change that. It's going to be ingrained from the beginning that the players are the ones that the game is built around. Players are the ones helping to grow it. Like we're all building it together, and that's really what the digital financial ecosystem is. So I'm confident that building this type of project in this way, we're always going to be the go-to place for the players more than any other company, right? It's you don't build games around the publisher selling stuff and the publisher gets the upside. You build the games around the players sell the stuff and the players get the upside. And I think that's the right way to build this next generation of gaming. I think it's going to be the dominant type of gameplay. And again, we want to be the leader in that whole space. So,
Power to the players.
power
I
to
guess
the players, man.
one last thing before you go. SoCal Only Homie saying, I tried to sign up, but authentication failed. We'll try again later. What is the possible issue that he's running into?
So we had a couple bugs pop up recently. I think it's because we've been getting new users and we've been, scaling and growing.
Good
Which is
problem to
good,
have.
but you always have a little bit of growing pains. And so we like one bug we just recently found. If two people register at almost the exact same time, there was a bug that popped up from that. So one of the things that you can do if you're having a problem registering, you can email support@devvio.com, DEVVIO.com. We'll get it figured out for you quickly. You can create an account at glassblock.io, GLASSBLOCK.io. Hey, there's Roger. Roger's one of our great supporters. He's awesome. So good to see him here. He's a great guy. He's a funny guy too. Very enthusiastic in the crypto space. So thanks for tuning in, Roger. So you can actually create an account at glassblock.io, and that's where you also see the DevX wallet. And so that's a place where you can reset your password, resend emails, the verification emails, that kind of thing. So try to get your account set up at glassblock.io if you're having a hard time in the game itself. And if that doesn't work, then just email support@devvio.com and we'll get it figured out for you.
Awesome. All right. Okay. We'll end it here. We'll talk off camera a bit. Thank you so much for stopping by. This is awesome. I can't wait to go in and see what the future holds for all of us.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you,
it's
everyone,
great
for
being
coming.
on the show. It's been great getting to know you, and it's awesome having you actually jumping in and getting high scores and joining the community and all that. It's good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. Try my. Hopefully that keeps up for a while.
yeah, right on.
Everyone, thank you for joining. And just hang back. I will catch you all later. Bye, guys. Meow.
Thanks,
Meow.
everyone.